Good morning, everybody. I remember when we used to have to memorize phone numbers. I don't even know my own now. So today I wanted to talk about things that I remember going back, things that have changed, that have contributed to people becoming more impulsive or wanting everything right now. I remember when we used to have to handwrite everything, book reports, letters, everything you can think of was handwritten. Then there were typewriters. Do you remember carbon paper? It was like a duplicating paper that you put into the typewriter, two pieces of paper with the carbon paper in the middle, and then it would duplicate what you typed. We also had something similar in schools. There were no copy machines like we know today. They were more like print machines like you'd find at a newspaper company. So the teacher would put the original in this printing machine, but it would also work with like a rollout thing. They should have to manually roll it out, and it was like a carbon paper thing. I don't really remember the exact name of it or anything, but I do remember that. Now we have these copy machines that you can make 1,000 copies at a time. Back in my day, we had to go to the library to look things up in a card catalog. You had to learn, what was it called? The Dewey Decimal System of how to find a book on a shelf, and then you had to go and find the book. Then you sit down and read it. Now we have Siri. Road trips meant maps. Lots and lots. We used to keep them in the glove box. We used to keep atlases in the car. Wherever we stopped on vacation, there were places like welcome centers, and they would have a big variety of maps, destinations, places to go and sightsee, and we would collect one of each to go see everything. Now it's GPS. When I was in school, we used to have to go out back and clap erasers because teachers used chalkboards, and the erasers would get very dusty with the chalk. One of us would be assigned, and we were happy to do it. We felt like it was a privilege to go out back and clap those erasers. To us, that was fun. Today, kids learn on either whiteboards where the teacher writes out in the erasable markers, or Promethean boards, which are the touch screen. I'll never forget when I walked into one of my kids' older grades and saw Promethean boards for the first time. I felt like I was on Mars. I was like, what is that? Because in my generation, it was chalkboards. Who remembers popcorn? Your parents would make popcorn on the stove. I've mentioned this before, but we had a neighbor that would take us kids to the movie theater in a station wagon in the 80s, and she would pop the popcorn and put it in a grocery store bag when they used to give out paper bags. Now, some places still do, but that was very common back then. We didn't have plastic bags. So the grocery store would give us paper bags when we bought our groceries, and she would save them, make the popcorn, dump it in the bags, and we'd be walking in the movie theater with these big brown paper bags full of popcorn. Then they had Jiffy Pop. That was a treat, right along there with the TV dinners. So my mom would make the Jiffy Pop once in a while. Today, we have microwavable popcorn. I remember having pen pals when I was growing up. Sometimes we put a note in a balloon and let it fly away. And I remember getting one back, and we would write to each other, and it would take weeks to get a reply. Now we have email, texts. Most people don't write letters anymore. I have a 90-year-old friend who still does. She enjoys getting mail. Who remembers playing games with your families at the dining room or living room tables? Monopoly was one of them. It would take hours. We'd all sit there and enjoy a game of Monopoly. Now we have phone apps for that. It's instant. You don't even need 5 people to play. You can just play with yourself on your phone. I'll never forget the first time I came across Farmville. I was sitting there, came across Farmville, and saw how fun this looked. What is this happy heaven? And I started playing Farmville. And people were like, why are you up at 2 a.m.? And I said, because I had to pick my strawberries. No, true story. You know, like this is something that we didn't have in the 70s, 80s. You went to sleep, you stayed to sleep, you got up early to do other things, but we didn't have this funness. You know, so Farmville to me was like, this is awesome. I can remember going downtown with my grandmother and picking out a movie. That was like a treat on a Friday night. She'd say, go in the store, or she would come with me, depending on my age. And she would say, go pick out a movie and we'll watch it, you know, on the VCR. And sometimes the movie I wanted was out. There was like a slip there instead of the movie. And you'd have to wait for the prior customer to return the movie. Sometimes it could be weeks, especially if they were late returning it. So that's how we enjoyed movies back then. Now we have streaming. You don't even need cable anymore. Who remembers going to Dairy Queen and getting a dilly bar? Did you have a Dairy Queen or something like that near you? I remember going to get one dilly bar. I forget what it was, like a quarter, 50 cents. I don't even remember. but you could get one. Now you can get a 6-pack in a box. I'll never forget. I had my kids in a stroller when they were little, and I rolled down to Dairy Queen one day on a nice, summer day, took them for a walk, and I went in there thinking I could get a dilly bar for each. And I thought surely it couldn't be more than 99 cents a piece, right? I remember going to the post office with my grandmother when I was a little kid, and there were lines and lines out the door of the post office. Not only that, but you couldn't find parking. Now this is going back some years. I'm talking 70s here. But it was like that the whole time I was growing up. You could never go to the post office. It was a pain in the neck. I remember my grandmother complaining about it. The lines, the no parking and all that. I'll never forget the day I discovered postal pickups. I didn't have to leave my house. I had something to mail, went on the front porch, the mail carrier came and got it, and ordering stamps in the mail. I'll never forget that either, because my grandmother, she would be paying her bills, because back then, people wrote out checks and paid their bills in the mail. She would be like, darn it, I ran out of stamps. I gotta go to the post office again, stand in line. And she would go and get the stamps. And I'll never forget, I guess it was early 2000s, I discovered I could get them in the mail and not even have to go to the post office. I was thrilled. Now, this is past 70s and 80s. This is like early 90s. I remember going into a jewelry store. This man was a jeweler in town and used to make everything from scratch. You would just tell him what you wanted. So I designed a ring for my grandmother. And I said, this is what I want. This is how I want it in this price range. And he says, okay, I can do that. And he made it, and it was fantastic. It was gorgeous. So I went back to him just recently, within the past decade or so. He's still in business. And I went back to him and I said, oh, you made my grandmother the most precious ring I've ever seen. I'd really like another one similar with a different stone for a different birthday. And he says, oh, I got a catalog for that. And he literally opened a catalog and he says, I don't make anything now. It's all mass produced. I just order it. So that's how people have changed in the time frame from the 70s till now. Even when it comes to a handcraft, it's easier for this gentleman to order mass produced stuff than to make it. And it's cheaper for him to do that. I can remember Sunday nights was pizza night at my house, and my grandmother would be in her shorts in the summertime. And she'd be like, I don't feel like going down the store. I'm in my shorts. And she didn't want to get dressed properly in pants. Well, now everybody wears shorts, but back then, my grandmother would never have left the house in a pair of shorts. So my grandfather would go down there and pick up the pizzas. Now we have delivery. And with that comes any kind of delivery. You can get it 5 minutes, an hour, depending on who delivers it to you. And then there are places like Domino's. I didn't have a Domino's growing up. And they will do their own delivery. So now you can even track it on your phone when you get in the pizza. You know exactly when it's coming to your front door. I remember photos. Now this is interesting. We had what they called photo labs. At first it was a big building. It was like a retail store. You go in there when you want your film developed. And my grandmother would go in there and they put her negatives, the little things that came out of the camera, and they put them into like an envelope and put her information on it, her name and address. I think CVS offered that until recently. Maybe they still do, I don't remember, but I haven't used their services ever because now, of course, we have the digital cameras and so forth and cell phones. But back then, we didn't. So we had photo labs. Sometimes it would take a week to get back. Sometimes it would take a month. We were at their mercy because it depended how busy they were. We also had family camcorders. Now, some people had Polaroids, which was an instant photo. With one click, you could take a photo, and then it took a few minutes to develop. You'd set it down and then watch the film from it go from a black page to the photo that you just took. And right up until about 20 years ago, I had relatives that still used instant cameras. But now we can take photos and videos with our cell phones. I remember layaway. You wanted something for a special gift for somebody, or you wanted to lay away some Christmas stuff for your kids. People would go to the department stores and they would say, hold this for me, and they would pay weekly on it. And then there was a timeline. I don't remember how long it was. 6 weeks, 2 months, I don't know. To get your stuff out, you had to pay it off in full. And if you didn't meet that timeline, your deposit didn't come back to you. If you had already paid $400 into something, they kept it. So that's the way it was back then. Now, I don't think layaway exists. I think it's obsolete. But what we do have are all these apps and instant payment options. You can even do a weekly payment plan for a fast food delivery. Who remembers taking a taxi? Around here, they used to be like yellow cab, or we had different colored taxis depending on the company name. And they would wait, like in, for example, New York, when I went to visit New York City, they would wait on the side of the street and you could hail a cab or whatever. And now we have Uber. That's not something we had back then at all. We were at the mercy of the taxi cab companies. One time I was in New York City and I'm sitting there on the street corner. It's raining. There's big puddles near me. You can imagine how fun that was. And the cab people just kept driving by. Nobody wanted to stop. I remember when my grandmother remodeled her bathroom. She went down the street here to the store that had wallpaper samples, big, huge catalogs of wallpaper, and she picked out different things that she wanted to bring home and compare into her space with the flooring, the paint, and all that. So they gave her samples. They also gave her catalogs with colored photos. Now, you can still get some of that today, like at Home Depot and Lowe's. When you go in, you get paint chips on a card. So it was similar, but these were bigger. These were bigger. They were squares. And she brought a ton home. Now, she did return them because she didn't keep them. She didn't want to throw them out. But some of them you could keep. You could throw away. But they gave you that back then. Now, that's becoming harder and harder to find. I know that the last time I was at Home Depot, they did have little pieces of wood flooring for samples that you could take in the flooring section. So I did see that there. But if you go to an actual showroom now, they don't have brochures. They don't have catalogs. They don't have samples. And people get mad. They want that. They want the physical pieces to touch and to bring home and to compare with their space. But the revolution of one-day services, one-day installs, I think changed the way we used to do things. It changed from the homeowner to these companies. Like, think about the one-day bath installers. They have certain packages you can pick from. They no longer have samples. They come to you and say, hey, which one do you want? And then they put it in one day. When I had my floor downstairs done in my bathroom, because I had to remodel, there was a flood. And I picked out a slate floor, and I went through a flooring company, and they came out. They had like a little binder, and they had like 10 floor samples, and that was it that I could choose from. And I picked out the slate. I said, I want that. And it was done in one day. But there was nothing I could keep. There was nothing I could bring into my bathroom to see at my convenience and leisure to, compare to my paint or anything like that. The salesman had it in one big thing that was glued in. You couldn't take that with you. That was his. And the same thing happened when I went into car sales. There was a customer that came in, and she was probably 80 years old. Lovely lady. I just loved working with her. She ended up buying a different model car, so she didn't buy through me. But she was seriously interested in the car we had for sale. And she said to me, where are your catalogs? Where are your brochures? Where are your samples? Where are the customization boards? I didn't know what she was talking about because I only went into car sales at the end of 2024. And I was only there 90 days. I didn't know prior experiences about car sales. My grandfather always paid cash, and he always got used cars. He never bought a new car. That was my life experience with him. So I never saw a customization board or anything like that. I didn't know what she was talking about. And she was getting upset because there was nothing for her to see. And I said, it's all online. And we only worked with iPads. So she was really outraged. She was like, I don't want to look at that. I want to feel, I want to see. I said, I'm so sorry, we don't have that. Just like when you go into showrooms today, different showrooms. Like I said, the one-day bath model people, they come to you. They don't have a showroom where they show you all kinds of samples and you can take it with you and look at it at your leisure. It's all about the pressure they want you to buy. So they're in your face right now. Here it is. Do you want it or not? And then they offer you discounts on it. Well, that's the way car sales pretty much was too. We wanted her to buy now. We didn't want her to take all these samples at her leisure to decide. I remember I used to enjoy shopping trips. I would go out. Everywhere around here was strip malls full, or indoor malls full of stores, full of customers, parking lots full of people. Especially the 4th of July, we would have parades in town. And when I was a teenager, I worked in retail. And I remember the parade coming through town where I worked so I could stand there and watch the parade. Because at that time, no customers were shopping. They were all at the parade. And that's the way it was. And they would have summer sidewalk sales. So you could go shopping at a discount all summer, and I would get a lot of my back to school shopping in then. My grandmother would take me down because everything was on special. I'll never forget when my kids were little, I saw Amazon for the first time and thought, I can just order something in bulk. Like those, those little boxes of cereals that they have at the grocery store. I remember getting like a 30 pack of those for my kids and thinking, I don't have to go out to the store to get the Cheerios or the Fruit Loops or the Corn Puffs or whatever. I can just order it at my convenience on Amazon. It will be here in 2 days. I remember that, and I remember doing that. But of course, at what cost did that come to? Then I saw stores around me disappearing. I saw all the retail stores where I once shopped and loved disappearing before my eyes. And now, of course, we have Instacart, DoorDash, and all the other delivery options we have. Now, there's even drones and self-driving vehicles that will deliver things. Like I saw, not around here, but Domino's, I guess, will deliver pizza in a self-driving car. And Amazon and I believe Walmart, I don't know who else, is offering drone service in select areas. Imagine sitting on your couch and getting a hankering for something like, hey, I need some Doritos or something, you know, and then just sitting there going, 1-800-AMAZON. I want those delivered by drone. And in 1 hour, you can have 10 bags of Doritos at your doorstep. You know what I'm saying? But the one thing that I have personally noticed, aside from everything else I just said, is that the retail stores are hurting on more than one level. Meaning, yeah, they started disappearing. We hardly have any place to shop here now. The strip malls are becoming obsolete and empty. Our mall closed, so we don't have no mall anymore at all. We have no food courts. They're all just individual eateries or restaurants. We have more car washes than anything now. There's literally like 6 on the same street here. And gyms. We have gyms everywhere. But the one thing that has affected me personally as a consumer, one time I went into Michael's craft store and I needed something specific and they always used to sell it. And I went in and this young girl was a cashier and I said, hey, where is this aisle? I can't find it. And she goes, oh, we did away with those. I'm like, what do you mean? Why would you do away with that? And she said, we sell it online now. You have to go online and get it. She's like, oh, well, we can do it here and I can have it shipped to the store for you and you can come back and pick it up. And I'm like, but can't I do that myself? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, then why would I have you do it and have to come back? I can just have it shipped to my own house. Basically what's happening now from my point of view is that the retail stores have become like a last ditch effort or last resort to find something. So you go online, you can't find it, or they don't have it in stock and you have to wait a couple of weeks. So people are going to retail stores going, hey, do you have this in stock? I was looking online and the salesperson, cashier, whatever is at the retail store will say, oh, no, we don't, but we can order it in for you. And then it becomes a race. Well, who can get it first? Can I get it quicker? Can they get it quicker? And if they can get it quicker, then it becomes, well, how much is the fee? Oh, it's $25 to overnight it. Okay, I'll pay it. The $25 used to be something that people would hold on to, that $25. People didn't have disposable income to just say, yeah, I'll pay the $25 fee to have it overnighted, because nobody had an expectation of instant gratification. Nobody had an instant expectation at all of anything for the reasons I just set forth. But now paying extra for something, even if it's $25, is peace of mind to people. They know it's done. It's out of their mind. And I think the accumulative problem now is that we have all become very impatient. Back in my generation, that wasn't a thing. People didn't just impulsively go to the store and buy cartfuls of stuff. They had budgets. They knew they could spend this much on groceries and they stuck to that. They added it up as they went. My grandmother would bring a list to the store of things that she wanted and she would put the price that she last remembered to know how much it was going to cost in advance to get the money out of the bank. She didn't use, did they even have ATM cards back then? I don't think so. But she didn't pay by check, she paid by cash. And that's the way it was. And now, because of the credit cards that we all have that we didn't have back then, you know, we can have anything. Even the fast food, you could pay weekly. You order McDonald's and it's $30. Now you can pay a payment plan of $7.50 a week through one of these apps. And I think that is a reason why a lot of people are impulsive and a lot of people are neurotic and a lot of people are impatient, because we want it now, because we've been trained that way, because we have that expectation. When somebody walks into a retail store and says, do you have this? I've been looking online. I can't find it available anywhere. It's like out of stock and it's going to take 3 weeks. And the person working at the retail store says, yeah, I can get it tomorrow, but it's going to cost, you know, freight or an overnight fee. The consumer is happy to pay it because they want it now. They don't want to wait the 3 weeks, even if it costs them more to get it. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the future. You know, if we have Uber, DoorDash, drones, self-driving cars now, what's it going to be like in the future with the, what are they called, meta glasses? You're going to be able to see things right outside of your brain, like right in front of you, walking around. You know, you're walking down the street and you get hungry. What are you going to do? Look in the sky and go, I want a milkshake. And then some kind of self-propelled robot or delivery vehicle or something is going to appear on the sidewalk with your milkshake. It's going to be like living in the Jetsons world. When I was growing up, I watched the Jetsons. It was a cartoon. It was a fantasy. We all thought, wouldn't that be cool? If we had these things, but we kind of are going in that way. So what do you remember? What do you remember that you had to wait for, that you don't have to wait for now? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching today. Take care.